I make sure that the brand is synonymous with where my income comes from. Okay. So the brand, no matter what I do, people know me as a real estate broker, or they associate me with real estate in some way, shape, or form.
This is Entrepreneurs the Playbook, where I give you access each week to the world's greatest athletes and executives about their personal and professional playbook and what has made them champions on and off the field. This is the Playbook.
Dave Meltzer, CEO of Sports One Marketing, here with Entrepreneur the Playbook. And I have a multifaceted Ryan Serhant here, the multi-million-dollar listing guy. But I want to start with an interesting thing. I have 3 daughters and a little boy, and one thing I taught my daughters was a line that said, I'm going to keep my options open. Yes. And when I was reading about you, both of our careers have unraveled. I just kept saying, it's your life, right? You always seem to, like, if I'm not incorrect, you started kind of as just a contractor and a roofer.
Yes.
Is that right?
It kind of. I mean,
you're too good looking to be a roofer, by the way.
Yeah. No, it was my parents always made me do like manual labor. So we always had to work every summer when we were little kids. And so it started with general yard work, and then through college, I worked for a company called Testa Building and Remodeling. And so I did like demolition and roofing and all that. And I just have this memory of just 80-pound bags of shingles on the shoulder, up and down ladders, taking the demo, ripping out kitchens, putting it. And what it really teaches you more than anything, other than exhausting you, is like you want to work your ass off so you never have to do another roof for the rest of your life. But yeah, man, my whole life is based on just having said yes and figuring it out later, right? Because you never know. You just never know.
Yeah, and when you're doing a job like that, because I've come from the same kind of Midwest work ethic, that hardworking. Yeah. I always just try to find the silver lining in it. Like, when I was in that, terrible job, I tell a story when I was in law school and it was a recession. I prayed to God that if he could give me a job with enough money to buy my mom a house and a car and pay off my law loans,
sure,
that I'd shovel poo with my hands 12 hours a day for 6 days a week for that opportunity.
Sure.
That's where my perspective was. Did those types of manual labor jobs, while you're in it, were you aware enough to say, this is building character or perspective for me, or were you just like, I hate my parents?
Honestly, I think it was probably 50-50. Like it was good to be outside. It was good to make some money, right? You really, for a big part of it was really learning the value of a dollar. Like, what does $8 an hour get you, right? And I think at the beginning it was like $6.50, then I went up to $7.50. Then $8 an hour, and you really see, like, okay, I work my ass off all day long and then all week. What do I really have to show for it? And then what are taxes? And so you learn about like that value of that dollar, which I think that, especially in New York, it's hard for kids to really understand, right? And even if you have a job on the internet, if you're getting paid for, flipping little things here and there, that's fine. But like, you don't know the value of a dollar until your hands have bled from making that dollar. And I think that's the thing that I learned the most, not so much the building of character. I think at the time I was just resenting doing that kind of work, but like I will never forget what it took to make those $8 an hour. Same way I never forget that first rental deal I did when I first got into the real estate business. Like that first client who ran me around for my $550 because that was 50% of the $1,100 a month and the $1,100 commission that I took and 1 month's rent and split it with the house and all that. Like, I was so excited for that one check because I knew what it took to get it. Like, that's what's important to never forget.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that also carries, I can see, obviously content's a big part of what you do. You're a personality now more than just your profession. But one thing that I watch is the idea of value, right? I think of people as appreciators, meaning you're grateful for what you have, but also you add value. And the best real estate agents aren't just doing the standard paperwork.
Yeah, we're not monkeys.
No, you're adding value, but you're also recognizing the value of the client and the value of how hard they worked. For whether it's a $100 million home or a $2 million apartment, whatever it is, I can see there's an empathy there. There's an understanding that I want to get you the most value for one of the biggest purchases you're going to make in your life.
Yeah, it's all about empathy. That's what I look for when I hire new agents, or empathy, enthusiasm, and energy. And empathy is number one. If you can't relate to a client, if you can't go through whatever they're going through on high or low with them, then they're never going to trust you. They're never going to have confidence in you. You always bring it back to like doctors. There's that moment where, the doctors say that even if you think the patient's dead, right? You still do everything you possibly can to bring them back so that when you go out there and you see the family and they're looking at you and they're about to cry, you can say to them with all honesty that you did everything you could. Like you left nothing on the table. And you have to be able to do that when you talk to clients. Like I was 2 minutes late to coming up here because I'm in the car outside trying to do a deal. The seller's break even is $4.5 million. Our best offer we have on it right now is 4, plus they want everything under the sun because they know they can ask for it because it's a buyer's market and they know that they have all the power. And I'm talking to the seller and I'm just sort of like, listen, you can take the money, close your hand and run, and we'll make you that $500,000 some other time. Or it's up to you. Like, what do you want to do? We've done everything possible to bring you this one offer. So it's up to you / the gods now. You know, and that's a tough conversation to have with people because it's always the fear of the unknown. Like, but there could be that other person tomorrow. There could be that other person. I don't know.
Yeah, you know, and it's interesting because you have to manage expectations.
Yes.
Early in my life, when I made my first millions, it was by what I call manipulation, overselling, back-end selling. And some of these things you may be aware of exist in the real estate market.
Sure.
And I was in the real estate market. And I decided to shift the paradigm of value, saying that I'm just going to be of service. And along with that service was, here's, number one, I've done everything I can. But two, here's, from my experience, you know, how I evaluate this situation.
Sure.
And you can leverage my experience or not. But I see a lot of real estate people and salespeople, because you're truly an expert at sales, that they're afraid of the truth.
Yeah.
How do you really, you know, and I can tell you're at peace at telling someone what you just told them today.
Sure.
Right? The truth is, you know, it's a buyer's market. You've lost your leverage, but I love the fact that you said, just because you're down today, you know, we'll
Doesn't mean you're down tomorrow.
No, of course not.
Yeah, everyone thinks about everything as do or die today. And sometimes that's true when you have a bank riding down your neck, right? You have certain bills, but for the most part, it's not. Like I've sold apartments for clients and they've made millions of dollars. The next deal we do, they're going to take it on the chin, and it's like the world came to an end. And I'm like, but net it out.
Yeah.
You've made $2 million instead of making 3 on 2 transactions. And it's so hard for them to see it that way, but you have to, like you said, set those expectations and see like the world view of everything to kind of take people back a moment, like teach people to breathe, right? Just like take a moment, take a step back. Everything's going to be okay. You're not going to die. Like I'm not doing brain surgery.
Yeah.
You know, it's like sometimes you have to remind people of that. Like no matter what happens with this deal, you're probably going to live. Like you're probably still going to be here tomorrow, and kind of find brevity in some funny moments in some of these situations, and try to anticipate people's emotions. That's been a big part. And I wrote a book, and it's a big part of that as well. You know, like the stages of grief are identical to the stages of selling. And if you just know what they are, you can anticipate all of them so that someone's not mad at me. I just know they're in stage 3. Right? They're in stage 3 and they're going to go to stage 4, and I'm going to calm them down in stage 5, and I just have to get them to stage 6. So it's not mad. They're not also excited because I know what's coming next, and what comes next after excited is they start to have buyer's remorse. Right? Then they start to feel like they got ripped off and this, that, the other, and then they're going to get angry, so I know they're going there. You can anticipate and set those expectations and those emotions. For selling and for dating, you are in a much better place.
Yeah, I read those 7 things, and the best, I've lost over $100 million in real estate, right? At a golf course, a ski mountain, you know, not understanding leverage, and that banks wouldn't necessarily always let me borrow just because I had equity.
Right.
Was a valuable lesson to start getting mentors.
Yeah.
But your stages is what I used accumulation to buy my beach house in San Diego. I waited 3 years, found a couple, pocket listing.
Yeah.
You'll appreciate this. And I said to him, I want a 14 days closed cash, because I knew what was going to happen is the wife, because they were already divorced, not getting along, she'd at 10 days back out. Right? She would say, I don't want to do this, because she was emotionally attached to it. Yeah. So I purposely had a strategy to make sure that he was I shouldn't say man enough, he was going to be confident enough to stand up to her and piss her off again, so it would remind her why they're selling it.
Yeah.
And exactly, my wife thought I was a genius, right?
Yes.
And it just comes from a bunch of dummy tax that I paid. In your job, though, in selling, what trust and like in real estate, you know, it's sometimes overused in selling. You got to get people. I believe it's very simple. What you do really well is you connect emotionally to people. Yes. People buy on emotion for logical reasons, no more than any other place than real estate, because it's the most emotional purpose. What do you do to emotionally connect to your clients?
It's all about finding that one little thing you have in common, especially at the beginning. Because you have to remember too that clients aren't clients, just the same way your best friend wasn't your best friend initially, right? Everyone, no matter when you met them, was at one point in time a stranger. Like when you realize that, then one, you can go up and talk to people on the street a lot easier. You can walk into parties and talk to random people without having that weird anxiety, because you remember, oh wait, my best friend Caleb at home, he was a stranger that first time I met him, and that probably was weird, but we had that one thing in common. What was it? Oh, it was real estate, and we both liked Homeland, or whatever it was. Right? So you're finding that one little thing in common so that you're not focusing on the sell, because when you focus on something too much, a watched pot never boils, right? So you're not focusing on the sell, you're focusing on just on two human beings. What do we have in common? Maybe it's sports, maybe it's cars, right? Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's food. You find something you have in common, and you let that conversation kind of happen between the two of you, and that immediately, that eye contact, kind of the smiling, the fact that you like something that I like, and we're two random people among 7 billion in the whole world, holy shit, maybe we could be friends. Everybody wants to go shopping with friends. Everyone hates to be sold. And so that's how you build that initial trust. And it's the same thing with...
Say that one more time, because that's a very valid... Everybody...
Yeah, well, it's... No one likes to be sold. Everyone loves to go shopping with friends.
Everyone likes to go shopping with friends. Yeah. That's a beautiful line. That's gold right there.
Yeah. And the same goes for dating, right? Like it's amazing to me how it's all the same. Like I tell new salespeople who are single, right? Who are single, and they're like, what could I do? I could say, okay, you do this, this, this. Also, go on Tinder, go online, go on as many dates as you can, right? And the ones that don't work out, you follow up and get feedback. Get feedback. See what you're like in a cold open. See what you're like at the bar. Maybe you're really weird and you just don't know it. Maybe you say the stupidest shit and you just don't know it. That's really important, because the way you act on a first date with someone you just met online is the way you act with a first client, the way you probably met them online through a showing request or at an open house. And if you're awkward, you need to figure that out now in a safe environment that's not going to cost you money. And it goes a long way.
Yeah, and I think surrounding, as you are building your brand and utilize as an expert and as a personality, you get it out of a situation where people like you and I actually are bred on no, right? I have a saying, I can change someone's idea of no by just telling them you're only 25 no's away from getting from what you want. So I started thinking in my mind, oh good, I'm stoked. I just got my 5th no, because I know I'm only so many no's from getting what I want. How do you teach, because that's the emotional rejection side for your salespeople, how do you teach them to deal with no?
Ask the same question they just asked again, like they never heard it before. Like it's, people only say no because people don't like commitment. And sometimes they really mean it, and that's fine. Like they're not going to win everybody, but for the most part, people don't commit to something, and they say the word no because they just don't like commitment. Like naturally, human beings, we don't like it. We like to keep our options open. Like I don't want to commit to you right now because I could find something better on Amazon. Like I don't want to commit to you right now because I don't even know why. It's just easier to say no. Like it's always much easier not to do something than it is to do something. And so it's also about presenting new ways of value and showing them different ways to look at something. So the same way I just talked to you about, that client who, don't worry about the $500,000 now. Let's think about the next deal, because you are buying something else and you're going to do this and do that. It's a different way for them to say, oh, maybe I'm not really taking a loss. Maybe it is $4 million in my pocket today that opens me up for future opportunities. And the person I'm really working for is future Ryan, not Ryan right now who's losing $500,000.
Right.
And then it's not a no, right? Then it's a sort of, which will eventually turn into a yes.
And you lock yourself in for future client, future commissions by aligning that vision to them.
Always. I mean, I came to the city, and I think one of my biggest, in retrospect, it was a benefit to me in sales, is I came to New York to be an actor, and I spent 2 years here. I had some money saved up because my grandfather died, and I had my roofing money, right? And I was like, I'm gonna be able to live here for 10 years, which wasn't true. And I tried to be an actor. Like there is nothing unlike personal rejection to your face when you're trying to be an actor in New York City. And it's legitimately, it's because of your face.
Sales training.
Right, it's because of your face.
But you were a hand model, so you got away with it.
Yeah, well, because I wasn't a good enough model. So that's like what my brothers always said to me. They were like, dude, it's because you're not good enough as a model. They had to only take photos of your hands. And so it's to your face. Like no one has ever told me, I'm not gonna buy that apartment because of your face. Like that's what helped me in those initial couple years in the sales business of getting around the rejection and the objections. It was never personal. about like my appearance. It was
Yeah.
never like personal to the core, and that's super helpful.
It's super interesting because, as a former sports agent, working for Leigh, the clients always wanted to go into the negotiation, and I had to explain to them that
you don't want to hear what they're
you
saying.
don't want to hear it because, how do you play for a team when through negotiations all they're doing is pointing out all your weaknesses?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Instead of course, they're not going to point out all the things they love about you.
Yeah.
They're trying to get you as cheap as possible. Now, I have a philosophy I want to get your feedback on. I believe in the 3 no's. I believe if you're not ready to walk, you're not ready to sell.
Sure.
Right. And I believe in pure value, being able to articulate at least 5 times the value of anything I'm selling so I can have that confidence. But I also believe in the energy of 3 no's, meaning that in circumstantial sales, that any time that the universe tells me no, so something happens, the car breaks down, the guy doesn't show up.
Oh, okay.
On the 3rd time, what I say is, hey, look, I really have to spend my time with the clients that, this is working for or something, and then tell them, I just can't, pursue this any longer. If you would like to move forward, I'm more than happy, so please let me know. After that 3rd universal no, so sometimes it's just an excuse or whatever. It could be legitimate, but I believe, and what's ironic is when I took on this philosophy, 50% of the people that I tell this to close or do what I want, and the other 50% I never hear from again, which means I just saved a ton of money chasing something I never was going to get.
It's on a time.
Do you have any tricks or philosophies that are similar to that?
Unfortunately, no. Maybe I'll steal that one.
Good, please. No, that's a huge compliment, right?
Maybe I'll steal that one. We have listen. You play hard to get, right? You take deals away from people all the time. There's different ways to talk to people about the psychology of getting certain deals done, but I don't really have any tricks that way. Maybe I should come up with some.
Or philosophies. You have some great advice. Now, there is a transition that's happened from being, someone who's in real estate to a personality in real estate.
Sure.
And even coming in here, we walked in and some of the executives downstairs were like, hey, how do I know you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're that real estate guy.
Yeah.
That works for me.
Cool. How do you reconcile the brand with your, because you still have a job to do. You still sell real estate, right?
Yeah, all day.
Yeah, so, how do you reconcile that brand or utilize the brand to help with what you actually, profit from?
I make sure that the brand is synonymous with where my income comes from.
Okay.
So the brand, no matter what I do, people know me as a real estate broker, or they associate me with real estate in some way, shape, or form. Whether I'm, mentoring high school kids, or I'm running around with my wife, or I'm teaching other people how to sell. At the end of the day, that brand image is sales and is real estate. So that way too with my clients who will say to me, like, hey, should I hire you? Because you seem really, really busy. You're doing this book, you have 2 TV shows, you've got this vlog now on YouTube, like you're doing all this other stuff. Do you have time for me? Like, absolutely I do. Like, I do all of this stuff for you so that more people have exposure to me, my brand, and my brand is your listing.
That's
right?
awesome.
And I think so far that's worked relatively well.
All right, so the market's going down. It's a buyer's market.
Yeah.
So I own an office building.
Okay.
Profitable.
Okay.
I know the market's going to go down, especially where I'm at. Now, would you sell, even though when you know a market is going to go down and I know I'm going to lose the equity, would you sell and wait and buy a new office building, or is it better just to sit on it and let the market play out? And that could be for anything.
It totally depends, right? One, it depends on cash flow.
If I believe the market's going down.
Yeah, well, I mean, cash flow is what will kill you. So if it's profitable now, and it can be profitable or at least keep yourself afloat in a down market, and you don't need to sell it, and you have nowhere to go, then I'm always a fan of holding. Like, that's the greatest part about real estate, especially in the United States where you have freedom of title.
Yeah.
Like, the government's not going to come and take your property, right? Unless you own money.
Yeah.
There are other countries in the world where that's not true, and that's a different story. But it is, if you can hold and you can cover your payments, it's a great country to own property in. But if you are looking to do something else and you're looking to maximize, saying that, well, I'm not going to sell now because the market is going down, that's like saying, well, I'm not going to buy a convertible now because it's going to rain this weekend, right? Like, okay, well, if you need to sell for something specific that is super timely, then maybe you're right. Maybe it is going to rain this weekend.
Yeah.
But if you're looking to sell to do something better with your overall life, let's look at the big world. Sometimes it rains, sometimes it's sunny, right? But the best time to buy something is when it's rainy. So maybe you do sell now and then take advantage of the rainy market that's upcoming to get a better deal.
That's awesome. Last question. Coming from a guy who keeps his options open, has really experienced the unraveling of life, and really, I think, enjoys the process of the unraveling, where do you see your life and your legacy unraveling in the future?
Oh man, maybe get my own podcast. I don't know.
There you go. I'll help you with it.
Sure.
It'd be great.
I don't know. Listen, man, I'm addicted to chaos. Like, you ask anyone on my team, and they say that, like, I love creating chaos and then figuring out how to control it. Like, that's the only way that I'm happy. Like, just that adrenaline rush. Like, I can't just wake up and go to work. And so I think that I don't own my own company yet. You know, I have a small media company that does stuff for me, basically. And so I think owning my own thing is the next step, right? It's just, because I am my own boss now, but 1,000% being my own boss is probably the next step.
I think you'll be a great boss of yourself as well. So let me be a part of it when you decide to do that.
All right, we'll do.
You are a shining star and you have beautiful hands, by the way.
Oh, shit. Thanks.
All right, we got Ryan Serhant with Dave Meltzer, Entrepreneur, The Playbook.